Detroit Lions fans, Detroit Den 313 back with another episode. Super excited for this one, man. But before we get into it, hit that subscribe button. Hey, hit the subscribe button now because depending on what side of the fence you sit on, you might not want to hit the subscribe button after. So let's go ahead. Just go ahead and hit that thing right now. And then if you just click out if you don't like what's going on. But Steve, what the heck are we talking about, man?
We might have to have one of those uncomfortable conversations today. We talked about this right after the game against Washington. Everyone knows what's going on. We're going to talk Hendon Hooker, man. What's going on here? Because I don't know what his status is with this team going into 2025. I don't know anymore. I thought I had a pretty good grasp on it, but some things happened in December, and now it's trickled into January. And I'm not sure Hendon Hooker is going to be on this 2025 team. So I'm just going to come out and say it. We don't paint the corners here. We talk all topics. We talk everything. If it's Detroit Lions related, we're going to get on here, give our 2 cents. We're going to sit back, see what pops up. But I don't know. I think Hendon Hooker's future with the Detroit Lions is in jeopardy. William, how do you feel?
Well, first things first, I do want to say that I understand that painting the corners was a baseball reference. See,
yes, it is.
I'm not just a football guy, man. I'm trying to tell you, man. I'm
going to start throwing out some hockey terminology. I'm going to see just how deep this rabbit hole goes.
Hey, listen, man. I know what a hat trick is. But anyways, so bottom line, Hendon Hooker, how do I feel about it? I feel like you're correct, man. But I do feel like there's some interesting things that I want to see moving forward that I feel like are going to tell me some things. Now, what you alluded to, in case people did not understand, I'm going to elaborate on it. End of the season, last game of the season, Jared Goff goes out for a little bit of time. Who comes in? Teddy Bridgewater. All right. Who was the emergency quarterback for that game? Hendon Hooker. What is that about?
But before that, I told you I noticed when they put it up before the game, the inactives. Hendon Hooker was the inactive, so I knew before Jared Goff even got hurt, something's going on. So yeah, something's going on here. So I don't know. Will I smell trouble?
He was the emergency quarterback instead of being the number 2 quarterback. Like, so what is it? What is that? Is that because Teddy Bridgewater was showing that at that current moment he was the better guy to come in and do the job? What's that about? He's had 2 seasons to go figure this out. I watch guys like Jaden Daniels, CJ Stroud come in rookie year, get down, take care of business. So I feel like he's had ample time if he's got the ability and the tools and the mental capacity to go ahead and take over this thing for the Detroit Lions if need be. What's the holdup? What's the situation? Is he not who we thought that he would be? Or is it a ruse? Is it them trying to keep him back, pump the brakes? They knew they wanted to use the veteran just because he was a veteran, but they do believe in Hendon Hooker. One thing about Coach Campbell, I truly believe he's not a liar. I don't believe he's a liar. Now, will he withhold information as a head coach should sometimes? Of course, that's part of the business, but he went in front of the Detroit media and said that if Jared Goff was to get hurt, they would go to Hendon Hooker. And when he said that, I think he meant if Jared Goff was going to be out for an allotment of time, right? I don't think that he was speaking to in the middle of a playoff game, right? So that said, maybe that was just a situational thing. They thought it would probably be best to go with the veteran in that situation, but if they were turning over the keys to the castle, they would be turning it over to Hendon Hooker. I'm going to take Coach Campbell at his word. That said, man, I wish I would have got to see a little bit more of Hendon Hooker because I don't know what the heck he is or what he isn't outside of what I saw in preseason, and people were killing me. Some people were on board, but people were killing me when I said he don't look ready to lead an offense just quite yet. And it has nothing to do with being the tools, man. When a football leaves his hand, it just looks like a thing of beauty. The way it spins, the way it just drops in the bucket when he's throwing those go balls in pregame, just getting the boys ready. I love it. It looks different. He has that mobility aspect to his game that we talk about. But as we all know, playing a game of quarterback is deeper than that. There's some things that you need to be able to do, the ways you need to be able to lead, throwing the ball accurately. That's what I didn't see in preseason. That worries me. So, do the Detroit Lions stick with Jared Goff and due to maybe Hendon's age, decide that maybe they need to move on? One, we got a good organization, Steve. So they might just say, hey, listen, this dude's 27 years old. If we keep him around till he's 29, only to a possibility of extend Jared Goff again, what are we doing here? Let's go give this guy an opportunity to play. So for those reasons, I think we could see him potentially dealt. So Steve, you already said there's a potential that he won't be on this team. Where or do you have anywhere in mind that you could see him go?
Yeah, the Canadian Football League.
Wow. That's really how you feel?
No, I'm kidding. People will probably think I'm serious, but here's the deal. Let me ask you a question real quick, William. How was your Christmas? Did you have a good Christmas?
You know how my Christmas was.
Did you get lots of like presents under the tree? The kids have a good Christmas. Was like it was a cheerful time though, right?
For the most part.
Well, after Christmas on December 26th is when the Detroit Lions signed Teddy Bridgewater. So from December 26th to what day was that playoff game? Like the January 18th. So we're talking about 3 weeks. Teddy Bridgewater came from Florida, coaching high school football and grading papers or doing whatever he was doing in his spare time when he wasn't coaching football. And he stole Hendon Hooker's job. Sorry, plain and simple. That's how it went. Within 3 weeks, Teddy Bridgewater had the backup role in Hendon Hooker's QB3 in an emergency situation. I don't know what his value is. And the thing about preseason, we talked about it. We were excited. We said probably the only thing we're really excited about all preseason was Hendon Hooker, maybe a Broderick Martin to get a good look at Matthew Betts, those guys trying to make the team. But Hendon Hooker, all right, that was the talk of the town for 4 weeks when we were in preseason, all of training camp. Hey, we're finally going to get a look at him. He's healthy, coming off that knee injury. He's going to play some actual football. No more David Blau. We get some Hendon time. I thought he looked okay playing with the twos. I don't know what's happened between the 2 years we've drafted him to where he loses his job to a quarterback who was coaching high school football 3 weeks prior. I don't know how that's possible, how you're sitting in these meetings with Ben Johnson, the most creative mind in all of offensive football. They're sitting behind Jared Goff, who's got loads and loads of experience, a veteran offensive line with all these weapons. And Teddy Bridgewater came in and stole your job, kicked you to the curb. And I don't even know if he has trade value now, William. I mean, I had some episodes prepared where there's some teams out there. I like Hendon Hooker's potential. Potential we're talking about is college-based because he still hasn't played a meaningful snap in the NFL other than preseason. So I don't know how teams are going to look at him. I don't think he attracts a huge audience or a huge want of people wanting to upgrade their quarterback position. I think there's really only 2 teams out there that he might go and be able to start for. And the Detroit Lions is obviously not one of them. But what are those 2 teams? Probably like the Vegas Raiders and maybe the Jets, depending on what they do with Aaron Rodgers. I don't know that a lot of teams are going to trade for a Hendon Hooker who hasn't played in the NFL, where they're literally going to go dust off the tape from 3 years ago and look at his Tennessee tape and see how it looked. So I don't know. I don't need to be having many conversations about Hendon Hooker as quarterback 3, depending on what we do with Teddy Bridgewater here. But it's concerning that that's what happened in that playoff game, because when they listed those inactives, if you weren't at the game, you knew before kickoff something was up. Something was going on, and Teddy Bridgewater was quarterback 2 if anything happened. But if you're sitting at home and they didn't mention it on the broadcast, when Teddy Bridgewater came in while Jared Goff was going through concussion protocol, you were probably thinking, what the hell's going on? Why is Teddy Bridgewater and why is it not Hendon Hooker? But I don't know. Well, I don't see him as a Detroit Lion next year.
Yeah. I'll tell you this. I feel like if you're spot on about his trade value, he'll be a Detroit Lion because they're not going to cut him.
No,
I don't think that'll happen. But I think he's still got trade value. And I think that, man, in the game where the first game that he played in the preseason where he got the concussion, he had that nasty little run where he ran my man over. Listen, that athleticism and his arm alone is enough to keep on trying to develop him or get a look from some other places. I don't think he's truly got an opportunity to go out there and be the guy and show what he can do, which could be something that works to our advantage, or it could be something that works to our disadvantage. Well, yet remains to be seen, but I think it's real easy for somebody to see that you have the potential, they'll have the tools, and believe in their coaching ability and believe in their ability to be able to make you fit into a mold than it is to not have seen those tools and then try to fit you into a box. So that little preview of what he could do, it kind of excited me, man, and then things kind of fizzled off after that. But I see more teams out there that could potentially want a Hendon Hooker. I think of a team like the Cleveland Browns. I think about a team like the New York Giants. I think about a team like the Tennessee Titans, man. Like, is Will Levis the guy? These are all teams that are trying to figure it out. But I will say this, though. I will say this. Those teams that I just named, the problem with those teams is where they're selecting in the draft. Those teams are selecting. Those teams are selecting at the top half of the draft. But if you believe in Hendon Hooker, or if you have connections to any of the people who left the Detroit Lions, I'm going to get on the phone and I'm going to say, hey, Chicago Bears coach, how do you feel about him? What did you see? Hey, Antoine Randall L., how do you feel about him? What did you see? Hey, man, let's talk to Tanner Inkstrand. How do you feel? And, I'm going to get with these guys. I'm going to see what he is and what he isn't. What does he look like at practice? Do you believe this guy can play at the next level? Because for as much as this is a competitive situation in the NFL, these guys know that these are men trying to feed their families with what they're trying to do. If you can play this game, coaches are going to talk and try to get you an opportunity. Coach Campbell has been one to do it. He did it with Isaiah Williams. Hey, listen, this guy can play football. If he can go make somebody's active roster, hey, go get on their active roster instead of sitting here on this practice squad. Go feed your family. So it's going to be interesting. And this is what I really think is going to be interesting. You named the New York Jets, right? I think about the New York Jets. Aaron Glenn knows exactly what Hendon Hooker is and isn't. All right. So if I'm the New York Jets, my quarterback right now could potentially be Aaron Rodgers. After that, I think you and I have an opportunity to get the job. Like, we can go fight for that job. It's up in the air.
My phone's on.
Hey, call us, right? But if Aaron Glenn does not call to see about Hendon Hooker, that's gonna let me know something. If he goes into this season with just Aaron Rodgers and doesn't go after Hendon Hooker, because he's not going to be selecting a quarterback at a spot that is going to be optimum to get a guy. I think they're picked 6, or I had it up here, 6 or 7. Yeah, pick 7.
Yep.
Yeah, they picked 7. So them top quarterbacks are most likely going to be gone. All 3 of those teams at the top of them could use a quarterback. I'm not saying that all 3 of them are going to take them, but they could use a quarterback. You could see them taking one. So there's a potential the Vegas Raiders pick before the Jets do. So there's no honestly, just not to give up too much information, I'm not really high on most of these quarterbacks in the draft that's coming out anyways, especially as a guy that's going to have to come in and potentially start next season. So if I'm the New York Jets, and I would rather go after one of those guys, trade up maybe to go get one, and not go get Hendon Hooker, that will tell me something. That will perk my ears up. That will be interesting. So I'm looking for the Detroit Lions to do something like make a trade with the Vegas Raiders, make a trade with the New York Jets. Now, guys, here the Vegas Raiders and gals, respect, right?
Here the Vegas Raiders. Getting Max Crosby.
Yeah, exactly. See, you nailed it. You already know. It's not happening. There's not going to be any Hendon Hooker for Max Crosby trade. It's not happening. Just like keep dreaming. I don't care if you do Hendon in a first-round pick. You're probably still not getting Max. It's just they want 2 first-rounders for Max Crosby. You're going to have to get in them pockets and do something that's going to hurt to go get Max Crosby. And I don't think the Detroit Lions will do it. But what you might see is some type of third-round pick. And the reason why I say that is this. I look at trades like this. I went over a few. Sam Howell, when Sam Howell got traded away from the Commanders, right? The Commanders got a 3rd-round pick, right? In return, a 3rd round and a 5th round is what they got. And they gave up a 4th round and a 6th round pick, right? So a 3rd round pick is something that I could see potentially going for a guy like Hendon Hooker. Kenny Pickett is another one. What did the Steelers get for Kenny Pickett? A 3rd round pick, right? A 3rd round and a 7th round pick. So a 3rd round pick for Hendon Hooker, if you don't have a quarterback and you're looking like, hey, do I march Aiden O'Donnell out there? Right? Or do I bring in Hendon Hooker? Hey, listen, do I march out the corpse of Aaron Rodgers, or do I bring in Hendon Hooker? Right? So at where they're picking in the draft, the quarterbacks that will be available, to me, it makes a lot of sense to go after a guy like Hendon Hooker. I think the Detroit Lions could get some draft equity and maybe a role player out of the mix of it. I think it would make sense for all parties. Even if Hendon Hooker is a pretty doggone good quarterback, makes no sense to me for us to wait out Jared Goff's contract, let Hendon Hooker turn 29 years old, and then give him the keys to the castle. wouldn't be fair to him, wouldn't be fair to Jared Goff, right? To just have this guy nipping in his ear because hey, listen, when old Warford was nipping in his ear, he didn't really like that too much when it got hot. So I'd imagine as Hendon Hooker starts to get better, if he was worried about little Warford, right, from back in the day when he was with the Rams, imagine what it'll be if Hendon Hooker starts really getting hot and looking good. I think that'll mess with Jared's game. So that's my take on it, Steve. Do you think that you could see a trade with somebody like the Vegas Raiders or the Jets, or you think I'm in left field?
I don't think you're in left field, but I don't know. I think that the Jets and the Raiders are at least within striking range for a quarterback in the draft, 6 and 7. There's been some chatter about the Tennessee Titans maybe wanting to trade back and not take a quarterback. Maybe they still believe in Will Levis. They haven't really seen him with weapons and an offensive line. The mayo monster, they call him down there in Tennessee, because that dude puts mayo in his coffee. It's fucking weird to me, but do what you got to do. I know that they're pretty high on I know that they're the Titans are also high on Abdul Carter, so they don't want to go Will Levis or take a quarterback and then pass on Abdul Carter. So I don't know. We're going to get into some draft stuff later, but I think that at least the Jets and the Raiders are within that striking distance to get a quarterback. Now, I'm with you. I don't really love a lot of these quarterbacks in this draft either. I think the two at the top are Shadur Sanders and Cam Ward. And I'll be honest, I don't overly love either one of those two. I'm glad that my team's not in the top 5 and needing a quarterback right now. But regardless, we talk about it all the time, Will. This is a good situation for the Lions. The more quarterbacks that get drafted in that top 10, what does that mean? That means that some of these defensive players, some of these linemen, they start sliding down to that 28 spot. It's just the ripple effect. We were surprised last year when Bo Nix went in the top. I know he went to Denver. I can't remember what number pick he was, though. He went in the top 20, something like that. We were a little surprised by that, but we said this is good for the Detroit Lions. That's another name moving down the board that's going to be available for us. So regardless of what happens, it's a win-win. So is Hendon Hooker worth a third-round pick? I think I would take him definitely over Aiden O'Connell. I looked up the Jets depth chart while you were talking. Even if Aaron Rodgers retires, they got Tyrod Taylor. I think he's obviously not a franchise quarterback, but can he go out there for a season and see what they got? Maybe. I think I would still take Tyrod Taylor over Hendon Hooker just because of the knowledge he has of the game and his experience, and he's not banged up because he's been mostly a career backup most of his career other than a couple seasons in Buffalo. So if I had to look at it, I would say Vegas probably makes the more sense. They need a quarterback. It's an instant upgrade. They could still keep their first-round pick and build around Hendon Hooker and give him a couple years, understand that this isn't going to happen overnight. It's going to be a process. And again, that's a win for the Lions. You telling me I give Brad Holmes another third-round pick? He just got 2 third-round picks for Aaron Glenn going to the New York Jets, so give that guy some more ammunition. He's shown that he can maneuver the draft, so keep him, trade him, whatever happens. It's a win-win for the Detroit Lions, and that's all I care about. But I just really don't see Hendon Hooker being here in 2025. And again, let me ask you this question. Is it possible that Teddy Bridgewater stays unretired and stays our backup quarterback? Because that's another thing we have to look at.
Honestly, I think Teddy Bridgewater is going to do the same thing next year that he did this current past year, because he already said that he wants to go back and coach high school football. So, and he wants to run him back. So if he's doing that, I think it'll be the same. He'll want to go through the high school football season and then come back at the end of the season and be with the Detroit Lions if need be. And, you know, maybe if Jared Goff has some type of issue during the season and Hendon Hooker wasn't available, then maybe he would move that situation up a little bit faster, depending on, I don't know what type of coaching situations he has in place. If that situation was to unfold, I'm sure it's been conversations one way or another, if he would do that or if he wouldn't, man, because the Detroit Lions, they're not dumb. They're going to be ready for any type of situation. But there's also, man, the guy that we talked about, we've been talking about him in the draft, man, was Jackson Dart, man. So he's another one, man. Maybe we deal Hooker, man. We get Dart in here later on in the draft with maybe that extra third-round pick, or we take those 2 thirds and move up into the second and go get him. Haven't really got into exactly where I think that he'll fall just yet. I don't think that he'll be one of the, top 4, maybe, quarterbacks coming off of the board. So maybe, that's a guy that they trade up and go get and give him a little bit of time to develop a younger guy that has some tools to get it done.
And a 5th-year option. And before anyone says that doesn't happen, the Atlanta Falcons did the same exact maneuver last year. They signed Kirk Cousins to a monster contract and drafted Michael Penix, and everyone was shocked. So I'm not saying that's what the Detroit Lions need to do or that I want them to do that, but teams draft these quarterbacks in some surprising situations. Even when the Ravens selected Lamar Jackson, it was kind of a surprise. They traded back in at the end of the first round to get him. Look what he's done. I know he hasn't won a Super Bowl, and that's what everyone's going to say in the comments, but he's still a generational talent. So if the Detroit Lions are sitting there at pick 28 and they like what they see at Jackson Dart and they say, hey, I don't have any glaring needs. Now, this is not what I want them to do. I'm telling you right now, I've been watching a lot of Senior Bowl stuff. There's some guys out there that I'm getting hard over, Will. I'll just come out and say it that way. I'm getting hard over some of these guys at the Senior Bowl. But if they don't love them like I do, and I'm not the GM of the Detroit Lions, and Jackson Dart's sitting there and Brad Holmes is thinking the same thing, like, man, I could get Jackson Dart, a fifth-year option, cheap rookie contract, maybe give Jared 1 or 2 more years and Jackson takes over. It's a low. Let me get this out there, William. It is a very low percentage that this maneuver actually happens, but it is possible. I'll say 5% chance, just so that everyone doesn't hammer the comments and call Steve an idiot. All I'm saying is it has a track record of happening. The Detroit Lions are in a similar boat. We'll see what happens in late April, though.
Yeah, I definitely think it's a possibility, man. I feel like this is what great teams do. Look at the Kansas City Chiefs and when they drafted Patrick Mahomes, right? Look at the Green Bay Packers, right? What they did with Aaron Rodgers, what they did with Drew Love, man. Like you need to have the next guy waiting in line to be able to take over the throne, man. That's just what smart teams do when they have the opportunity to do it, man. You don't want to be caught out with your pants down, man, not able to go out and win some football games. You're not able to turn this thing over. If Jared Goff, what if Jared Goff gets banged up, man, and he decides he wants to retire? And then we're just hoping to draft somebody, get somebody in here to be a bridge quarterback until we can draft somebody. We got a successful team that's winning, so we're most likely not going to be at the top half of the draft. So that's another thing that we got to figure out. No, man, you got to get these guys in the room and get them developed when you have the opportunity to do it, whenever that is. So I do think that something probably happens with Hendon Hooker. I just think that it makes sense. Why are you going to let this guy turn 29 before you turn it over to him? And I think that you will see us draft a quarterback somewhere, or there's still guys out there. I still got dreams. I know that they're most likely not coming to reality, but getting some of these other guys in here and letting them compete, man, and see what we can do. But just like, and I love that Coach Campbell said this. Hey, if we turn this thing over to Hendon Hooker, we're going to play a different style of football. It's not going to be the same play action, make accurate passes, throw the ball downfield when we need to type football. If I start Hendon Hooker, maybe we're going to see some read option. Maybe we're going to see some more athletic stuff. I know when we seen him in preseason, that mug was running around and doing this thing with his feet. So it's not necessarily going to be the same offense and the same style just because it's the same OC. You guys put it in the comments, man, and no disrespect, but we got to put some more respect on these NFL coaches' names. Like, so they was talked about Larry Foote. Hey, Larry Foote's not coming here because he's a 3-4 guy. Listen, let me tell you something. Larry Foote knows how to run multiple defenses. He's not just going to come here and just say, hey, all I know is the 3-4. We got to run 4. You know what I mean? Same thing with these offensive guys. They're not only boxed in to one form of offense, right? It's very few guys that are like that. When I think about that, man, really the guys that come to mind are guys like Kyle Shanahan. We know what Kyle Shanahan wants to do, right? He wants to have guys that are very fast in his backfield that can catch pass out of the backfield, and he wants to run. He wants to hit you with his zone blocking scheme. That's what he wants to do, and he wants to draft players that fit accordingly. This is the same thing with McDaniels in Miami. He has a type of football that he wants to play. He's drafting players and getting players in free agency that can play that brand of football. Most of these coaches can adapt to the personnel that they have. And I'm not even going to say that those coaches can't adapt at all, but they're more set into the ways of how they like to play football. Most of these coaches can play football multiple ways, and we got to account for that too when we talk about these coaches. This thing gets turned over to Hendon Hooker, we're going to see a different brand of football. And honestly, if we don't deal him, I hope that he gets some sort of packages. Maybe he's got a package of plays where he can get in there in the goal line or something, or maybe one drive a quarter, especially if we're doing what we were doing this year and blowing teams out in certain games. Hey, if we're up by 2-3 touchdowns, why not start easing this guy into the rotation, man? Why can't we do it? See what he is, see what he isn't in live football reps. So, but Steve, like I said, I think you're onto something. I think there's a more than 50% possibility in my mind that Hendon Hooker could get dealt. It could even be a draft day trade in my mind. Hey, Detroit Lions are trading Hendon Hooker for a 3rd round pick and something. Here it is. Then they already got a deal in place to take their 2/3, put them together, and then, hey man, next thing you know, Jackson's on our squad, man. So yeah, I can foresee something like that happening, but this draft is rich with edge rushers, and I really think that we're gonna see some edge rushers, and there's edge rushers all through this draft, giving you guys a little bit of the hint of the sauce that you're gonna see. I got edge rushers in the 1st, the 2nd, the 3rd, the 4th. Hey, listen, I was just at my son's high school. I got a couple kids that might be able to edge rush for us potentially. Hey, this coming season, I got edge rushers all over the place. They're all over this draft, guys, with potential, man. So I think there's going to be opportunities to maybe take one of those picks and draft a future quarterback if you deal Hendon Hooker.
Anything else tonight, Will?
No, that's it, man. You got me all hyped up, though. You got me excited, Steve. I'm ready. Let's get the draft here. After the combine, after the pajamas, just get the draft here. Let's start getting ready.
Senior Bowl, baby. It's Senior Bowl day. I think we have the game Saturday. I'm excited for that. I'm gonna tune in. I've been checking out some of the live feeds for the practices. There are some animals in this draft. I'll say right now, there's some kids from Toledo. There's some kids from North Dakota State, from Marshall. There's some kids that I like. Yeah, I'm not saying names. Just dropping some little breadcrumbs. There's a bunch of names. We're just talking Senior Bowl. There's plenty of people that aren't even at the Senior Bowl that aren't eligible. But it's time. It's that time of the year. We're going to talk some situations. We're going to throw you guys some curveballs. All right. We're not just going to go in here and say the Detroit Lions signed Teddy Bridgewater today. This is what this move means. It's great. Here's his contract. That's boring shit. We're not a news channel. We like to spice it up a little bit. Stick around, hit that like button. We'll be back later with another show.